Hello and good morning. It is day 19. 2 days away from 3 weeks. Again, kind of in that boring phase, really. I'm starting to notice that it's more boring to talk about the the kind of lull phase. You have that initial like really high contrast in how you feel physically, and then the physical stuff wears off, and then you're kind of doing this sort of lull where it's mostly a slow burn of mental and emotional changes, and then all of a sudden that slow burn kicks off, and then you're back to madness again. And I feel like I'm hitting the beginning of that climb up. When I say madness, I don't mean literal madness, of course, but you know, my journal's starting to look a lot different than it did 6 months ago when I wasn't writing in here and wasn't paying any attention to what was going on in my life. And the more, I'm writing a page a day, sometimes more, and of course the other writing is coming out. So like this is good, and it's not all good stuff. Like some of the stuff that I write is hot garbage, but I'm writing, and that's the main thing. So anyway, I guess we'll talk about that this morning. And physically with the marijuana withdrawal, it's basically gone. I saw friends, or working out with friends yesterday when they smoked up afterwards. I didn't really feel like I needed to smoke with them. I saw the bowl and I saw the flower, and I thought to myself, yeah. But there was no urge to join in. Mainly because I knew what we had coming up, and I knew that if I did smoke, that I'd feel like shit, particularly after the workout. A few hours after the workout, when your body is tired, and then you have that pot, like funk decrease. Less funk. That decrease, on top of the fact that your body is wrecked from the workout, actually makes you feel worse in the evening. And I've noticed, when I was using, I noticed that I would get pretty bad headaches at that time, no matter how much water I drank, just from from maybe just not feeling good in general. Of course, at the time when I was abusing, it was more difficult to know what it was, because I was high before. I was high in the morning, and then I would be high at the workout, and then I'd be high when I got home. So when my body was starting to recover from that workout, I just felt like shit. But yeah, I guess I didn't really have any need for it. And my behavior, the changes that I'm going through, or rather the changes in my behavior that I'm applying, these new things, and I shouldn't say new things, but these things that I haven't been doing for a while, I think they're rubbing off on the people around me, because the people around me are starting to take stock of what's going on in their lives a little more, and make changes to what it is that they're doing. And not wanting to sound like a narcissist, or a blowing my own trumpet, but one of the lower on the tier reasons for me to do all of this, and to make these changes, was to set an example for people around me, so that I can say, even though politics is so crazy and culture is so crazy right now, what I'm doing in my life isn't crazy. And that if people around me who are living in those crazy places see that I'm having good results from not being involved in those places, and from doing the things that I do that are different to what they're doing, that at the very least they would question the things that they're doing and the ideas that they have. Not so much the ideas, but more the behaviors and the actions. So yeah, so that's actually been, and it's validating, because when they repeat your ideas back to you, when you haven't fished for it, that feels good, because it's a validation of your ideas, and it's a validation of the ideas that they're working, right? That they're working not just in my life, but they're starting to work on other people. And like I said, setting an example by changing yourself, it shouldn't be your first port of call, or it shouldn't be the first thing that you want as a reward for changing the behavior. Ultimately, the main reason I'm changing is because I want a better life for myself. But if the actions that I do help others, then I'm happy about that too. The video game withdrawal is as it has been for the last week. I keep finding myself thinking of ways to get a game onto my PC or onto a console so I can test this internet connection out. But I know that, and I heard an interesting quote yesterday from a friend who said, one is too many, and 1,000 is not enough. And he was referring, I'm assuming he was referring to addiction to a harder drug or a harder type of thing. But it's true even with video games. The one that you relapse on is too many, but then once you've relapsed, there is no limit. And when my buddy said to me, he was like, yeah, I think I need to put video games in a box for a while. I said to him, or I asked him, I said, do you find that you're doing it when you're bored, or do you find that you're doing it like as a hobby mostly, like as a pleasurable way to pass the time? And he was like, when I'm bored. And then he told me a story about how he had started something, and then he'd run into a hurdle, and instead of working to overcome the hurdle on it, he just put it down and went and started video gaming. And I was like, yeah, that's that's it. That's the cycle. Like you step off, and this is the danger of setting your goals too high. You give yourself this big project, and then you get into the big project, and you get that first couple of hours of motivation and enthusiasm because you're like, yeah, I'm doing the thing. And then 2 hours in, you hit your first main hurdle. It might be if you're building something and you're like, fuck, I don't have the right tools for this exactly, or I have to do something with this that I'm not 100% sure how it works, and the instructions are not clear, and it's going to require me to have to put some hard work into figuring it out. And immediately your brain's like, hey, and this comes back to the dopamine thing. Your brain remembers that there's other things that you could be doing that feel good, and it turns that on. It reminds you of the things that you could be doing, and then you're like, oh yeah, I could just be playing video games. Fuck it, I'm just going to go do that. So then you drop the project and you go play video games. And listening to him talk about it reminded me of why I was quitting, because that was the same thing for me. I would start work and then be like, ugh, fuck, I don't want to do this. And then I'd just go sit down and do nothing for 3 hours. And then I'd be like, shit, I need to get back and do work. So then I'd drag myself back to the desk, sit down, start trying to do it. I'd give it an hour, and then I'd be like, oh, this is too much. I need to go do something else. And it would be straight back to the couch or straight back to games. And yeah, it was nice to see that, or to be reminded of why I'm doing this. And it was nice to hear someone else talk about their struggle with it, because this is a person who values his hobbies. I think he identifies with his hobbies a lot, and so for him to say it must mean that he's had some thoughts about it, and I'd like to think that I've helped influence that, at least in a very small way. And then where I'm at is the emotional and the mental stage of quitting. Particularly with the marijuana, I've become more patient, more forgiving. I'm less road ragey, less irritable. My jokes are a little more dad joke and a little less cutting and mean. And I feel my confidence isn't necessarily up so much, but my confidence in how I'm interacting with other people is up. Like, I feel like there's not this sort of haze of indifference and maybe not confusion, but like with marijuana, there's always those blinders on a little bit. And when you interact with people that are your friends, you can step on some toes without even knowing it, because sometimes when you're high, you sort of blurt things out. And the stuff that I've been blurting out hasn't been that kind of confused marijuana talk. And so emotionally I've been feeling really good, and mentally, I mean, as I've talked about, I'm much more productive. So yeah, that's where I'm at on day 19. My plan is to do on day 21 is to do another sort of big talk. I think what I'm going to try to do is maybe do like once a week on the 7-day multiples, is to do something that covers a topic that I've been thinking about or that's been going over in my head. I might talk about something from the stuff that I've been writing about in the mornings, or something related with work. I don't know, but I'd like to try to tie it in with the steps as we go, because 3 weeks in, what are we, about a quarter of the way through, a little bit less than a quarter of the way through this process, and I'd like to make milestones of each of the weeks. That way there's sort of something for me to look forward to making, to creating, and putting on into video format and talking it out, about things that I've been thinking about and sort of maybe future projects, or I don't know. But anyway, as always, it's been a pleasure, and yeah, talk to you tomorrow. Ka kite.